So spawning down in the bottom right hand position as the pink Zerg player, representing my insanity, it's DaNa. And his opponent to the top left, the red Terran, representing ECV, pbNoRe. I think I'm just going to call him Nori. pbNoRe is quite hard to say, especially if the action gets a little bit intense, which I suspect it could do. DaNa, for the moment, has gone up to a temple, or 10 supply yet again, but is not going to be templing, is what I meant to say, as an overlord coming through. Extract trick, just going to allow another drone to come out, and then off to go and scout with that 10th drone. It's a nice little way to go, especially considering this is a best of one. Using that 10th drone to scout is actually a really smart play, because what you don't want is to get caught off guard by, say, a proxy 11-11 2-racks. And that's something that is viable on Deadless, because it's a 2-player spawn map. Pretty much any 2-player spawn map is viable for some kind of proxy play. Quick little bit of pause for pbNoRe. I'm not noticing any lag, so unfortunately it would appear that it is on the Terran player's side. And well, this little pause is just a nice little rest gap to let us think about what we could be seeing. So, from a Terran player, there's a couple of viable openings. Reaper expands are pretty common, to be honest. Other things that are usually relatively viable are just some nice little drop plays, maybe a big Hellion play or something like that. Meanwhile, over from DaNa, what we're going to see probably 9 times out of 10, especially if it's some kind of bio composition from the Terran, is Zergling Baneling Mutalisk. It really is the staple of Zerg play up against Terran, and it works very well. Really, it's going to be a response to what we see Nori go for early on, that is DaNa's real game plan. It's just, as a Zerg player, you're generally quite happy in the early game if you're not going for some kind of all-in, to sit back and try and drone as heavily as you can and not die to anything that your opponent's throwing out. So what DaNa's going to be critically looking for are the gases. I already saw both of those checked, because if a gas was taken, it would mean there was going to be some kind of Reaper play, or at least some kind of tech. Without that though, it means that this is only for marine production. It should be a fast command center off the back of it, most likely. DaNa has the natural hatchery on its way through, starting up a spawning pool after the gas, so this means an early Zergling speed is going to be available to the Zerg player. Meanwhile though, we get a little bit of interesting stuff coming through as a second barracks has now been added in. This is a little bit of mind game play. The important thing for DaNa to now do is identify if and when the natural base gets taken. One thing that may ring a couple of alarm bells though is the fact that Nori does have a marine very far forward looking to find any overlords, and this is something that isn't too often seen. It is used sometimes, but you're always going to question, why is my opponent doing such a good job of trying to hide what he's doing? Is it some kind of trickery? Third barracks being added in now. DaNa is going to have to be very careful with how this is defended, because a lot of marines can be pumped out of 3, now 4 barracks. Okay, the 4th barracks coming down makes this pretty much an all-in. A 5th one definitely. It's just mass marine production. DaNa sneaking that overlord through the back, going to be trying to keep a good little spot on whether or not there is anything coming down at the natural, but more importantly, going to be trying to sneak in to get some scouting information. And once DaNa sees these additional barracks, what will most likely jump to there is going to be a Baneling nest. That's going to be very important for DaNa in order to defend against a heavy marine count. It still will be tough though, because obviously they will be slow Banelings as opposed to fast Banelings. DaNa needs to continue moving in, doesn't get full information here, sees a lot of marines there, will know that's more than can be produced from 1 barracks in that time. Interestingly, there was no move actually by the Terran player to actually come and hide those marines that were being produced by the additional barracks, which is something you will sometimes see in order to make it more difficult to scout this from the front just by knowing how many units are down. So creep spread now becomes actually critically important for DaNa, because that creep spread will allow better surrounds on these marines. Zergling's still poking and prodding, just trying to find a bit more information. DaNa backing away with this overlord. I did see more barracks coming through here, but sees that there's no command center, knows it's going to be some kind of 1 base play. Would love to see DaNa actually move this overlord in a bit further, even just a little way, just to try and get a good little scout down to identify what's coming. This is completely gasless, a Rotoron on its way down, as well as more Lings. So this isn't going to be Banes, instead Roaches, and actually I prefer Roaches as a response to this, because roaches can be focused down quite nicely, and while Bane hits are good, if you get enough roaches, they are going to be able to deal with the Marines nicely just because of how much damage they'll be tanking up. And without medevac support, these Marines won't be very effective up against the roaches. So forward comes this Overlord now. DaNa, still adding a lot of lings, knows it's a one-base play. So at this stage, DaNa's key priority is to get out a defensive force because there is going to be some kind of big push. Does the Overlord see the Marines moving forward? No, I don't think it does. Zergling is positioned down here, but this is potentially now going to catch DaNa off guard. This is a lot of Marines. All the SCVs getting pulled. This is a big play, a big all-in. Roaches coming through. The Zerglings do now see the Marines, but I'm going to engage, and that is a big loss for DaNa. Underestimating quite how many Marines were in position. So now DaNa backing away, has got some more Zerglings here, roaches coming through. It comes down to this defense. If DaNa can hold with these roaches and these Zerglings, it's a one game. There is nothing back home apart from one mule. It would be basically impossible. Can probably afford to lose a natural base actually with the SCV pool. So buying as much time as possible, but DaNa now wrapping around with those Zerglings, wrapping around with those roaches. The Queen's even getting involved too. DaNa's army supply is about the same as that of his opponents, but it's the SCVs tanking up that's really helping. Good focus fire though. The Marine count quickly getting taken down. A lot more Zerglings and roaches in production off the back of this. And as the Marine numbers decrease, how effective these roaches become massively increases because the Marines can't kill them quickly enough. The Queen helping through as well. The Marines all getting taken down, and GG is called, and DaNa is able to defend the all-in and advance forward into the round of 16.